Hey UConn Nation, it's KK Arnold here. If you're looking for the latest UConn women's basketball content, go subscribe to Listen Up to Phil and Ryan. Go Huskies!
Phil and Ryan, listen up. Ryan, we just flip-flopped episodes. So you're telling me today the spotlight goes on to Aaliyah Edwards. We pick up on the series where we left off. Two players left, Aaliyah Edwards, and I'm sure everybody can guess the last episode what that one is when we resume next week. But Friday now we will preview the Europe trip. But for now, let's go ahead and talk about Aaliyah Edwards, Ryan, on this Wednesday, July the 26th. Thank you for joining me. As always, a good morning to you. Hey, she's moving into her senior year, and they're like the sky's the limit, man. You told me this was arguably one of the best players, not only on this UConn roster, but in the whole nation last season. At 6'3", out of Kingston, Ontario, Ryan, Aaliyah Edwards had her best, and probably by far, it's not even an argument, her best season last year, 22 and 23. You know, when you look at the stats, man, and you have to remember how many times did we see Aaliyah Edwards' name in the box score where she led all scores in points. She had career highs in rebounds. She had assists, career highs in assists. She did it all, man. And you saw even her as far as the games played. She played in 34 and she started all 34 games. If you ask me, especially after losing Dorka Juhas when Minnesota drafted her in the W, this is really the key piece down below with Aaliyah Edwards playing that forward position. You told me she averaged around 16 points a game last season. If you ask me, Ryan, and we'll get your take, the senior forward, this is really it. This is where it all starts. Now, I'm not saying no, there's nobody. There has to be, in my opinion, in order to have some major success, especially when you reach the end of February, when March approaches, you have to have somebody else down there beside Aaliyah Edwards, and just besides her. I don't know if you can rely on her all the time, but to me, this is where it all starts. And again, especially losing Dorka Juhas, Ryan, this is a big body in the paint, 6'3" forward, and the UConn Huskies, they're going to need her. They're going to need her every single game. I can tell you that.
Yeah, and definitely now because I'm sure you all have heard it by now about the news with Jana and then the Achilles injury. Unfortunately, we received that news about 5 minutes after we pressed the stop button on recording on Monday. So we do apologize for not being able to actually say that in the video, but that's just how our luck goes. But anyway, Aaliyah Edwards today. Yeah, I mean, you definitely said most of it there. The amazing season she had last year, and it really was a joy to watch her. I really had fun watching her every single game. And like you said, we got to see her in every single game because she did start and play in every single game along with Lou Lopez last year. One of only two players, and of course now the only player on the roster that was able to stay healthy the whole entire season. And obviously the numbers do follow up with all those games started. Obviously led the team in points with 16.6, second in rebounds and blocks too. Of course, Dorka Juhas led the team in field goal percentage too. So without a doubt, obviously Aaliyah definitely had her best season last year. And like you mentioned as well, was definitely up there in the National Player of the Year conversation. And I think she could probably do it again this year, hopefully up there with Paige Beckers or
Yeah.
perhaps even AZ Fudd. I think there's a couple of players on this roster that could make a good case for National Player of the Year, but obviously a long way to go until that. I just hope that Aaliyah can kind of replicate the season that she had last year. I think realistically, it's going to kind of be a little hard to do that, but hopefully, obviously, the last time we're going to see Aaliyah Edwards in a UConn Huskies uniform this year. Without a doubt, I think it's a great possibility she does get drafted into the WNBA, so that would be really cool to see her and Dorka and a couple other these players now that we got to watch at UConn in the W. But yeah, I mean, for Aaliyah, hopefully she can stay healthy the whole entire season. I think it's definitely going to be interesting who we see beside her down there in the paint at the other forward position. I saw a couple people in the comments mention about how Jana could have possibly been that player a lot of the times beside Aaliyah Edwards, but unfortunately now that's not a possibility. Maybe Aubrey Griffin a little bit. Maybe we see Ayanna Patterson. It's really hard to tell. I think the player next to Aaliyah Edwards is probably going to change quite a bit until Gino really figures out who he wants down there beside Aaliyah Edwards. But for sure, I think Aaliyah is going to be that player down there in the post painted area that's going to really lead the forwards for this season. And I think that goes for all the players on the roster that can really learn from Aaliyah this year. And hopefully a couple of these players were able to watch her play last year. And I'm sure they learned a lot watching her on the bench and playing with her in practice as well. So I'm expecting big things from Aaliyah this season, and hopefully she can somehow replicate the performance that she put on for us last year.
Yeah, and this is kind of dated news, but UConn women's basketball senior Aaliyah Edwards leads Canada to bronze medal in FIBA Americup. So she just when if anyone thinks that she is slacking, think again, because hey, CT Insider said it right. She's coming off a solid junior year that saw her emerge as the best player on UConn's injury-plagued team and one of the best in the nation. Ryan, so you're right. I mean, again, I don't know. Let me just ask you this very quickly. And I love to see the comments. I know you do too. Let's get everybody's take on this, because this could lead to a bigger discussion like I like and like you like than just a yes or no question or answer. But for now, we'll just keep it at yes or no before we head into comments, because we're running out of time. Does UConn even make it as deep as they did last year in the tournament, or win as many games without that superstar talent that we saw, that amazing step up defense, offense that we saw from Aaliyah Edwards? I don't think so. I'm sorry.
It's a very good question, and that's a good point. I was talking a lot about the offense. I didn't even mention her defensive impact from last year. It was incredible, getting all the rebounds, forced a lot of turnovers. Of course, like I mentioned, second on the team in blocks. So the offense was great to see, the aggression, the energy. She was obviously way more aggressive in the painted area, was able to drive the ball. She did a lot of great things on offense last year. And then on the defensive side, alongside Nika Mule, of course, those two really set the tone defensively, I'd say, for most of those games. And Aaliyah Edwards was able to guard Maddie Seagrass in a couple of those games against Villanova and really limit her as much as possible. But I would have to agree with you on that. I don't think UConn would have had the impact that they did have last year, even though they did obviously go out in the Sweet 16. I think Aaliyah was the leader for all the games before the Sweet 16 appearance that they did win in March Madness. So without Aaliyah last year, I don't know where this team would have been. So thank God for Aaliyah last year. And like I said, thank goodness she was able to stay healthy as well all last year. So hopefully, again, she can stay healthy this year. And I mean, without her last year, I don't know where this team would have been.
All right, comments. I know you're probably tired of me saying the same thing or reading the same comments over and over to you, but there's only so much reaction Ryan can give. But it's just interesting because now we're starting to see this pour in over and over again. Unfortunately, I have to start. It just caught my eye. I have to start off with this one, short and sweet, right? Not a very long comment. The disruptive one, and I'm not saying nothing is wrong with long comments. I mean, short, long, we like all comments. The disruptive one, UConn could have gone for Betts. Remember that.
Yeah, and I think a couple people, didn't really like to see that and kind of got a little defensive. But I mean, like we said before, UConn doesn't really go for the big name players, and I think someone mentioned that she was, or Betts would have picked UConn third or fourth on her list of schools she would have went to in the transfer portal. So, it is a fact that they could have went for Betts. Maybe they did, and maybe like someone said, maybe there were schools above UConn, but we're gonna never know. But it definitely was a possibility. But I just don't think it was realistic for UConn, even though it obviously would have been nice to bring a big name to UConn, a young talent as good as what Betts could turn out to be, to replace Dorka Juhas along with all the younger players that are on UConn already. But I just unfortunately I don't think it was realistic to begin with.
This is interesting. I don't know if I would agree with this one, Ryan. We'll see what Ryan says. Wessie goes, if all the girls on this team, we'll say if all the young ladies, how about that? If all the women on this team played with the same intensity and passion that Nika does, this team would easily be undefeated.
It's an interesting point, and I think everybody, I do believe everybody does play with kind of the sort of same energy and
Yeah.
intensity as Nika Mule. Maybe the players just don't show it as much as what Nika Mule does. It's hard to replicate as much as the energy and passion that she's presents on the court while she's playing. But I think we saw it out of Paige Beckers a couple times, a couple of years before in a couple of those March Madness games. We've seen it out of various players at certain moments in the season. But Nika
Watch what you
Mule
say
is,
now about number 5.
yeah,
Don't get me started.
but Nika Mule is a totally different breed when it comes to that. To be able to put on that type of show every single game. But I would say everybody does bring the same energy and passion towards the game. I think everybody, all the players, just show it in different ways.
Ryan, how about Stevie Kinsey? I say cancel the Europe trip in August. I wouldn't even allow for the chance of any other injuries prior to the season starting. That's just me. UConn has some seriously bad luck. If this is going to be the third season straight of injuries, I hope Jana is able to recover prior to the season starting. I really like her game. This news is so disappointing. Gino is going to have a heart attack if he hasn't already. Well, now we know, Ryan, Jana out for the season.
Yeah, unfortunately, she won't be able to return this season. But I think that might be a little bit too too late now to cancel the trip. Maybe they still can, but I mean, like I said before, it's impossible to predict injuries. So, as unfortunate as it is, and we're already too familiar with all these injuries with every single player on the roster now. So, it's just really unfortunate. But I mean, all we can do is hope and pray during the European August trip that no players suffer any major injuries or for any injuries as far as that goes. But I still do think the trip can be very beneficial, especially for the freshmen and sophomores on this team.
A trip to Europe coming up, Ryan. We will preview that. It was supposed to be today. We will preview that on Friday morning. And I can't wait to talk about that. Not only basketball, I know it's a basketball podcast, but I'm going to do my best to stay on track with you on Friday because I think one of the countries that they're visiting is Italy. So, man, that is going to be, or one of the spots. One of the spots they're visiting is Italy. So it's going to be hard, Ryan, not to talk about that. What? I mean, you like the spaghetti. You want to talk about, I've never been, but I mean, you want to talk about the pizza, the spaghetti. Oh, my goodness. So not only basketball, I mean, can you imagine the good times and the food discussions that's coming on Friday?
Yeah, and I think the cultural difference as well for all the players on this
Yeah.
team. I think there's a whole bunch of combination of things besides just playing basketball that
Yeah.
all the players and coaches are going to be able to experience as well.
All right, Phil and Ryan. I'll see you Friday morning right here on Listen Up.